2.
How old are they? 12?
12.
And who's the father of the 9-month-old?
It's a friend of mine.
Is that this gentleman?
No, this is my boyfriend.
So your boyfriend is not the father of the 9-month-old?
The courtroom fell into stunned silence when Judge Judy uncovered a family situation so chaotic that even she struggled to understand how a 12-year-old boy had become caught in the middle of it. What began as a seemingly simple dispute over child support payments quickly transformed into an emotional courtroom drama involving broken relationships, anonymous threats, unstable living arrangements, and a father fighting to recover money he believed never should have been paid in the first place. As the audience settled into their seats, nobody expected the case to unravel into a story filled with shocking revelations and uncomfortable truths that would leave one parent completely exposed under Judge Judy's relentless questioning. At the center of the dispute stood Miss Bussey, a mother of 2 children whose personal life immediately drew intense scrutiny from the bench. Calm but visibly nervous, she explained that she had a 12-year-old son and a 9-month-old baby. However, Judge Judy quickly discovered that the man sitting beside her was not the father of the baby. Instead, he was her current boyfriend. The revelation seemed simple enough at first, but it was only the beginning of a much larger and far more complicated story. As Judge Judy continued asking questions, the details became increasingly difficult to ignore. Miss Bussey admitted that she had previously been living with a male friend and his wife for nearly a year and a half. Then came the revelation that immediately changed the atmosphere in the courtroom. The male friend she had been living with was also the father of her infant child. A wave of curiosity swept through the room. Judge Judy's expression remained calm, but everyone could sense that she was carefully piecing together a timeline that wasn't adding up. According to Miss Bussey, she eventually moved out of the couple's home after receiving anonymous emails threatening her life. While she admitted there was no proof regarding who sent the messages, she openly suspected they may have come from the wife of the man with whom she had a child. The audience exchanged glances as the complicated personal drama began to unfold. The situation sounded less like a stable family environment and more like the plot of a dramatic television series. Yet at the center of it all was a 12-year-old boy, whose future would soon become the focus of Judge Judy's attention. When Miss Bussey explained that she moved out and into the home of her boyfriend, Judge Judy immediately shifted the conversation toward the child. What happened to the boy? Where was he living? Who was taking care of him? At first, Miss Bussey claimed she brought her son with her and continued transporting him back and forth to school despite the long distance. However, as testimony continued, a very different picture emerged. The father, Mr. McGlynn, described a confusing series of events in which the boy appeared to be shuffled between different households, relatives, and friends, while his mother dealt with the turmoil surrounding the threatening emails. The details became increasingly muddled, and for a brief moment it seemed impossible to determine exactly where the child had been staying. Then came the emotional turning point. Miss Buss explained that she was genuinely afraid because of the threatening messages and wanted to protect her son from any potential danger. Judge Judy acknowledged that concern immediately. In fact, she agreed that removing the child from a potentially unstable and threatening environment was the right decision. But that agreement quickly led to a much more uncomfortable question. If the child was no longer living with his mother and had moved in permanently with his father, why was she still receiving child support payments? Suddenly, the entire case snapped into focus. This was not about threatening emails. It was not about relationships, affairs, or complicated living arrangements. It was about money. Specifically, 10 weeks of child support payments that continued flowing to Miss Bussey even after the child had moved into his father's home full-time. Judge Judy leaned forward as the timeline became crystal clear. The child had moved in with Mr. McGlynn on November 18th and was still living there. Yet week after week, child support payments continued being deducted from the father's paycheck and sent to the mother. The tension inside the courtroom grew heavier with every passing second. Judge Judy began asking direct questions. Had she received the payments? Yes. Did she know the child was living with his father during that time? Yes. Did she believe she was entitled to keep the money? The answer she gave would ultimately seal her fate. Ms. Bousset argued that the father had time to stop the payments and that the government system had simply taken too long to process the change. In her mind, the delay was not her responsibility. The audience could almost feel Judge Judy's patience running out. The judge had heard every explanation imaginable during her decades on the bench, and this one wasn't convincing her. She acknowledged that government agencies often move slowly. Paperwork takes time, requests get delayed. But none of that changed the fundamental reality of the situation. The child was living with his father. The father was providing food, housing, clothing, and daily care. Yet money intended to support that child was still being deposited elsewhere. Then came the devastating reality check. Judge Judy pointed out that the issue wasn't how quickly the government processed paperwork. The issue was fairness. Child support exists for the benefit of the child, not as a bonus payment for a parent who no longer has primary custody. Every week that money was withdrawn from Mr. McGlynn's paycheck, he was effectively paying twice, once by caring for his son directly, and again through continued support payments that should have stopped. The courtroom became completely silent. No more explanations, no more excuses, no more distractions. For the first time, the emotional chaos surrounding the case faded into the background, leaving only one undeniable fact. The father had overpaid child support while his son was living under his roof. Judge Judy glanced down at the paperwork one final time. The calculation was simple. 10 weeks, $75 per week, $750 that never should have been paid. Then came the verdict. Without hesitation, Judge Judy ruled in favor of the father and ordered Miss Bussa to repay the full $750. The decision landed like a hammer. What had started as a complicated story filled with personal drama, anonymous threats, and unstable relationships ended with a straightforward lesson about responsibility and accountability. As the father quietly absorbed his victory, the courtroom reflected on everything that had unfolded. Behind all the chaos, one truth remained impossible to ignore. When a child changes homes, responsibility changes too. And in Judge Judy's courtroom, no amount of confusion, excuses, or personal drama can change the facts. The child had been living with his father. The money belonged where the child lived. And the truth had finally caught up with everyone involved.